Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of HazChat by Hazmat 101 Consultants. I'm one of your co-hosts, Bob Koshik-Nano, with my other cohort and co-host, Mr. Derek Shawman. Hello, Derek.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome back
Salutations. You
from
forgot to say
Virginia.
You forgot to say salutations.
Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, I love it when you say that because I was, and I say the same thing in every show. It makes me want to have a drink, which I probably will after this. So what the hell? Yes, Virginia. Just came back from Virginia, with Michael and quick up and back because we got things to do like this show and last day of a ops review class for a local department tomorrow and just stuff and more stuff.
So an easy retirement.
Yes, I am retired, right? Supposed to be retired? Yeah. I try to remind myself when I get off every plane or whatever.
To quote a famous movie, you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong, Brian. Oh, that's
if
funny.
anyone knows what movie that's from, leave us a comment. Maybe we'll recognize you.
Yes, that's right. Oh, not only what movie, how about the name of the actors? Their real names.
Yes.
And then we'll give you a shout out in the next month's episode. That's fair.
I think it's fair. And if it's not fair, who cares? We get to make the rules. It's our show.
And we can't afford anything else to give them. Maybe I'll mail you a sticker. A company sticker or something. I don't know. Anyway, so came back from Virginia. A big shout out to Todd Jordan and Wade Collins. They did a great job as always. Good people. Great seeing some friends, making some new ones. It was a good time. A little rainy because of the little tropical, whatever the hell it was. It thought it was going to be something and wasn't, but it was good. But like I said, we had to get up and back. It's still going on. Matter of fact, even as we're recording this Thursday, September 19th at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, it is actually going on right now. So hats off to everybody. Great job and good seeing everybody. So let's dive into this one, shall we? This is a call that was sent to us. We try to keep the episodes 20, 25, 30 minutes at most. So we're going to cram in a lot of information, I think, in this one, especially when we hit the air monitoring segment of it. But this was a call that happened at a very large distribution center that uses hydrogen for their forklifts and just all kinds of reasons. So we're going to talk about that. And to give you a little bit of the background, this came in as an EMS run. And like we talk about in our Hazmat Ops review class, the first due responding units are the ones that are going to set the building blocks for what will hopefully be a successful outcome. And in order to do that, you have to provide them with the tools so that they have that successful outcome. That means actually doing some meter training if they carry a 4-gas meter. It means understanding how to use the ERG. It means, basic size up and strategy and tactics that not only would help them in the hazmat call, but will help them all around in life, in the fire service. So these are things that Derek and I preach all the time. And, hopefully, if that's something you guys are looking for or need in your department, reach out to us and we could definitely set you up. But, those are key components for any department that, whether you have a 4-gas meter in your first 2 units or not, just basic size up and basic hazmat ops. Quite honestly, that's what it boils down to. So
yeah, they don't know what they don't know.
Right. And that it's funny you say that because that is actually the email I get after each class, almost guaranteed from the train chief. We didn't know what we didn't know. So anyway, so like I said, this came in as an EMS call. And when the first arriving unit showed up on scene, now this department does not have a hazmat team. They do have some 4-gas metering systems on their units. They do carry CO sensors, single sensor CO detectors on their EMS equipment, which, as we understand it, is what originally alerted them to there was a problem. Um,
That's a fantastic tool to have on there. I advocate for that all day long.
yeah, yeah. In the beginning, I was like, when they first came out, but as they've gotten better, and people are understanding them more, they've actually been successful at saving a lot of crews from heartache. Um, let's just say so.
Yep. Well, and when you figure that CO is the number one poisoning cause in the industrialized world,
Right,
it's
right.
definitely worth having the ability to detect it because it does present exactly how this call would be as an EMS call. It comes with
Yep,
headache, maybe some nausea, fatigue, and having that piece of equipment there, it just alerts us to the potential that there's something there.
yep.
And the great thing that we've talked about for forever with CO detection is the electrochemical sensor for CO is usually significantly cross sensitive to other products.
Right.
So not only is it giving us that heads up of, hey, is this CO call? Is this actually a CO call that's causing the EMS? But it can just alert us to there's something here.
Right.
Don't know what it is, but there's something here. Pay attention.
Exactly. Exactly. And to their credit, I believe if I understood what the chief was telling me, that they had another unit come in to confirm, that they had that CO reading, and then at that point they called in the hazmat team. Um, so so that's kind of the background of what happened. So let's just go. We'll look at a couple of pictures first, just to kind of show what's going on here. First off, this was a huge facility, and we're not necessarily
Oh,
saying that this was it. We're just giving you an example of I forgot how many thousands of feet they said. I want to say it was over fifty
yeah.
thousand square feet of warehouses, if I remember correctly. But this is what you're looking at. So you have a hazmat scene here, and without even getting into chemicals or anything yet, this is something where you need to look at your remote air monitoring systems. And
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely being able, if you have an incident on a site this scale, yeah, definitely preferable to have that remote air monitoring versus having to dedicate someone to standing there with a device in their hand and radioing information back and forth.
right, right. Even this is where you might want to get into your drones and things like that. So, but this facility, is very similar in size. It had hydrogen storage tanks. So, like I said, they're using hydrogen now. Yeah, everybody's using different green gases and whatever, but this particular entity uses hydrogen to for their forklifts and all kinds of other things. So they also had storage tanks that had feeder lines into the building. And we'll talk about that more in just a second. But first, let's dive into a little bit of hydrogen. First off, we know it's flammable, right? We also know
A little
that
bit.
just what was that thing called? It floated in the air. Hmm. Kind of like a balloon cigar shaped looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't that
Mm-hmm.
have
A
hydrogen on
zeppelin. A
it?
zeppelin.
Right. Um, so it's flammable. It's also when you look at ionization potential, there's the molecular uh, ionization potential model, and then there's also the atomic. So you have two different ionization potentials that are out there. So I don't know many people that have a PID that's above the 10.6. I mean, that's rare. And even if
Yeah. Well,
so,
and they're only going to go up to 11.7.
right, they're not going to see
So
this. As I was getting ready to say, even so, they're not going to see this. So, Derek, my friend, what would be a good choice for this?
So let's tackle real quick the PID limitation there. It's actually a good thing for us that PIDs do not see hydrogen. Hydrogen is a component of the air that we're breathing with all the water vapor and everything else and trace gases. So if our PIDs saw hydrogen, our PIDs would always be giving us indications. We don't want that. So the fact that it's not ionizable by an ultraviolet light works out in our favor. Um, Things that we would use to look for this, obviously, you could use a direct read hydrogen sensor. That's always an option. You can use your combustible gas indicators. So we've got some different technologies, and we talk about that. You have your classic catalytic bead sensor, which uses a Wheatstone bridge to just basically balance out the comparison between an exposed element and a non-exposed element. You also have your MPS flammable sensor, which uses molecular spectroscopy. And that's a different technology out there, but will also detect hydrogen, which then brings us into infrared flammability sensors, which are not able to be used on hydrogen. Um, Infrared flammability sensors, they require that whatever the substance is absorbs infrared light. Hydrogen does not absorb infrared light. Therefore, you could have a IR LEL sensor in your handheld meter and walk into a hydrogen environment and get no change on your IR LEL sensor. It literally cannot see this. Kind of the same way that your PID cannot see methane. So this is where the importance comes into knowing what your tool's capabilities are, but also what its limitations are.
Right.
Those limitations could also kind of key you into something, because if I've got my IR LEL sensor and I've got a standard catalytic bead sensor and my cat bead's giving me readings and my IR isn't, I just determined that whatever this product is something that does not absorb infrared light. That's going to start pushing me towards hydrogen, or maybe one of those other hydrogen rich type components like an acetylene, something like that. So knowing what your sensor can or can't see is huge here. Some other technology that you could use and that gets often overlooked are your colorimetric tubes.
Mm-hmm.
Colorimetric tubes, it's just basically a reagent in a glass vial. They're very good for telling you if something is there. They also have cross sensitivity, just like everything else. And then another technology that Bob and I both like, but we don't see it leveraged and used as much. It's got a little bit of a learning curve, and the cost is substantial for all the equipment we have. But that would be a flame ionization detector, an FID.
Right.
And the reason that I really like the FID is not only is it going to give me a higher range on my ionization energy as far as what it's able to see, but it's also calibrated using hydrogen, which means I know that it can see hydrogen.
Right. That was the biggest problem we had with it was the bottle was left on. They leave
Yeah.
they leave the valve open, and it was like, Jesus, come on.
That and the gas supply company looking at us kind of suspiciously as to, you're going to
What are you
do
doing?
what with this cylinder?
What are you?
You're going to transfill gas from one cylinder into a different cylinder, and we're like, don't worry about it, it's fine. The manufacturer has it set up. At that time there wasn't a lot of it out there.
Right.
I think since then it's become more common, but
Famous
we definitely got some interesting looks.
famous last words. Trust me, I'm a professional. Yeah. You guys are going through a lot of hydrogen. What are you doing? Yeah. Good times. But yeah, it is. It is absolutely an underused tool. But hopefully, there's so many things out there, and we were just talking. I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but somebody was asking me recently about powder calls and how we went from doing a HazCat kit on the tailboard of a fire truck to all the stuff that they have out there. 23 years later. So it's kind of it's moving fast. So
Oh yeah, we've got portable glove boxes and hood systems and all those
yeah,
things out there, and it's fantastic if you can afford it and you can have it. But there also comes a point where we look at it and go, what is our mission? What are
right,
we doing?
right, exactly. So one of the things is this is where the system, these jacks, as you see here, and this is just they have several different forklifts. This is just one lift jack, but all these hydrogen lines come from an outside tanks and then feed into what you see in front of you. So you have many of these. I mean, just think about a warehouse that's 50,000 square feet or more. I'm going to hazard to guess you probably got a minimum of 20 of these running around. Um, and
Oh
then
yeah.
and then the actual forklifts themselves have, you could kind of look at it the same as you would a propane tank. In the smaller size cylinders, they have a 20-pound ish hydrogen cylinder on the tanks, and that's where they refill once they park into here. They refill them and go about their business. So these things could be all over the place. And we mentioned flammability, so that's a huge problem. If you go to one of these places that you're going there because of a fire, dude, you better check your tactics a little bit. I mean, it's not that, oh, we're gonna go put it out. Some of these things, you start going to these commercial buildings now, these commercial warehouses, you should be thinking propane, hydrogen right off the bat as the problem or a secondary problem.
And don't write off lead acid batteries and lithium ion batteries, because
Right.
there's a good chance that you're going to have all those plus diesel
Oh yeah.
somewhere all associated with this, because it's expensive to make a complete transition from one technology to another. So there's going to be a lot of these facilities that are in a transitional phase of switching to either hydrogen or propane or compressed natural gas or lithium ion or who knows what. So it definitely is a complex response when you go to these facilities, because their number one priority is keeping their operation moving 24/7.
Right.
So they may even have redundancy with a secondary technology in the event that there's an interruption, especially when you talk about down here in Florida with our hurricane concerns. Um, Lithium ion powered systems sound great, they're rechargeable, all those things, but if we lose power, that system goes down. So it's not unlikely to see some sort of alternative options in these facilities to keep them running.
Yeah. So once getting back to the run, once the local department realized that, hey, we've got a problem, they called the county hazmat team in, and with their initial readings, and they did have the ability to detect hydrogen. They were over 2,000 parts per million. And here's something else that's challenging for a hazmat team. Think of how high the ceiling is in there. And I'm not talking about the ceiling of the meter. I'm talking about the ceiling. Okay.
Hmm.
How are you going to get to those spots to do the air monitoring, especially when you're dealing with a gas that rises? Um, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I can tell you right now, if I'm standing on the ground and I'm seeing those elevated readings, I no longer care what the readings are up at the ceiling, because the
Right.
readings down where I am are not making me comfortable.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, the meter that they used was a Draeger manufactured device, correct?
Correct.
And they were using an XXS, I think they
S
have your XXS
two
H2
sensor.
sensor.
Yep.
So that does have a ceiling of 2,000 parts per million. That's when it is going to just default to reading high. It's reached the capabilities of its upper scale.
Yeah. So they right there said they had a problem, and there's somebody would ask me, well, don't they have alarm systems in there? Well, they do, and for whatever reason, they did not alarm. That's something that's still being looked into. Uh, we're we're not involved in that process. We're just passing on information from those that were there or that are in the know. And they, and I'm looking at their sheet here, their incident report. They not only had that, but they also had O2 drop to 20%. That's pretty significant.
Hmm.
That's pretty significant. And then they had cross sensitivities to some extent with some of their other sensors, that have the H factor involved. So there's a lot of things that were happening. Um, and then after that, they went to ventilating, and once they ventilated, they were able to reduce it. Um, this place did have natural gas facility. They went ahead and controlled that just to eliminate sources because they weren't having other alarms going off. The company on site gave them one of their sensors, uh, their um, their handheld meters, and it too was going off. So it sounds like there was a breakdown in maybe the system inside. Again, we don't know. We're purely speculating. This is still under investigation, so we're not making any accusations, whatever. We're just, quite honestly, just trying to figure it out like everybody else. How, why, and what, but more importantly, what can we do and what should we do? Now, they eventually, after doing shutting down the systems, the hydrogen systems, and the natural gas, which they knew wasn't involved anyway, but they went ahead and shut it down, and did the ventilation. Everything went back to normal, and I say normal loosely. The hydrogen levels dropped, the O2 went back up, and they had to shut the system down for a while until they could try to pinpoint figure out where it came from. And I don't know where the final determination was. But think about this for a second. We we do a class called the Politics of Hazmat, Derek and I, in conferences, and this is political because think about this for a second. You've got a 50,000 square foot minimum warehouse distribution center. How many millions of dollars could be lost? And then you've got infrastructure around it, roadways shut down. You've got, I mean, the whole thing just blows up more and more and more. So you've got to do what you can. Life safety first is paramount, is my big takeaway there. But also be sensitive to all the other things that's happening.
Right. We're professionals. We have to, as professionals, balance all the factors that are involved. Obviously, our priority is life safety. But if we take it without consideration to the other impacts, then everything we go to, we would just turn things off and walk away and say, "Oh, the problem's been controlled."
Right.
So there are some other considerations that we have there that we have to consider. The thing that kind of jumped out at me is I want more information. I want to reach out to the people that we got the report from, and I want to know, was there a catalytic bead LEL sensor brought into the scene, or an MPS LEL sensor? Or was it just the infrared sensor, which is my understanding what their meters carried was infrared sensors, which cannot see hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, they were relying on hydrogen sensors to give them their readings, but there were no LEL sensors in play because we still want to know the flammable ranges, especially because once those hydrogen sensors reach the end of their range, all that we know is that they're over 2,000 parts per million. We don't know if we're in the flammable range, if we've gone crossed into the too rich to burn range. We don't know those things, so
I think there was
that's definitely something I'd want to know.
I think there was a toxi ray LEL sensor that was brought in, and because I was reading a little bit further, and they got 18% LEL.
Okay, all right. So they did have
Yeah.
they did get some LEL readings there.
Yeah. And they did control ignition sources, by the way, too, if I
Mhm.
didn't already mention.
Okay, the shift in O2, I'd have to think about that. 19% LEL, was that a direct read, or I'd have to look at that toxi ray to see if it was set for direct read, or if what they were doing with it. I'm assuming it's a catalytic bead, and they're just,
Right.
I don't know if a conversion's been applied to that or what. But to see that reduction in oxygen with a lighter than air gas.
That says they did change the correction factor to hydrogen.
Okay. That there's one of two things happening for me. Either it wasn't hydrogen, it was some other transient gas that still had not been identified,
Mm-hmm.
or there was a buttload of hydrogen, or their reading was taken very close to the source of the leak.
Right.
Um, so I'd be curious to know more about it. It's always difficult when you're not there. And we're working off the information that's provided to us, which thank you very much to the crews providing us the
Yes,
information, because
absolutely.
it's to have these mental exercises to get us to think a little bit more about it. But no, I mean, it sounds like they identified a problem and kind of went from there. Reading the report here, I do see that the fill systems are remotely monitored and controlled. Is that correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
So with that, they were able to determine whether or not they had active product flow.
Correct.
And as long as their equipment was working properly, we could then, if we're saying that we have an active hydrogen leak, narrow it down to one of the actual pieces of mobile equipment, not the fill system,
Right. And
would be
I'm
my guess. Because
that's kind of what I
hydrogen
was
fuel
thinking.
cells, it's kind of where it's sitting, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. They were from my understanding they were supposed to do a walkthrough um 2 days ago actually. And as things happen, the hazmat team had a hazmat call. So they weren't able to go and uh and get more information, updated pictures, and so on and so forth. So,
So
but
you're saying the hazmat team had a justification for increasing the size and capabilities of the team
oh, absolutely,
while they were
absolutely
trying to do a hazmat walkthrough? They had a hazmat call. I mean, that says to me that, hey, we need more hazmat.
weird, right? Don't get me started. Don't get me started. You know I'm on blood pressure
Well, and
medication,
it
right?
it raises the question of where we are in emergency response with the fire service based hazmat. Of
Yeah,
we've consolidated the workload for hazmat to our technician level personnel. Operations level personnel can do quite a bit.
oh yeah,
And just like with the EMS side of things, where first responders were attritioned out and became EMTs. And now we're seeing a run for, we really don't need to be hiring EMTs anymore. We need paramedics.
right.
Um, the care that we provide on the EMS side is similar to what we're providing on the hazmat side. It's becoming a greater portion of what we do.
Okay.
And to have everything be handled by the team and have the operations level people not as actively involved in the process
Yep.
isn't a sustainable model. We need to really lean on those operations level people to embrace the full capabilities of that training and what their certification level is, and really supplement this even more.
Yeah, and I'm not. You can't just go. Here's a PowerPoint. Here's a manual. You can't point, click, click, move on. I'm sorry, you just can't do that and call that your hazmat training. Um, we've now without going down that rabbit hole. Derek and I both have we've done online training with people, and there's certainly a place and a time for it. But you got to follow up some of this with hands on, especially these first arriving companies that you're giving a 4-gas meter to. I often tell the story of one of the first classes we did for the ops review. The kid had a 4-gas meter on a Prusic cord and was swinging it back and forth like a priest in a Catholic church. I mean, you know that's crazy. And what we're finding out with some of these trainings is they're getting bad information, or how the kids are. They're turn on the computer, let it run, and there's their hour of CEUs for whatever. But anyway, that's a whole nother. Ooh, I just got an idea for our next show. When,
Well,
mm,
and
mm,
they need to have the two C's. They need to have competence and confidence. You can't have just one. You need to have both.
I think there's a class that we have that's clicks versus competence or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it kind of explores the applicability to online and hybrid training models, but the importance of reinforcing with actual skill.
Well, and I'll just wrap it up with this too. We don't do fire training on the computer.
Not yet.
God, I'm retired. I'm retired. All right. Well, before we you get anything else on this one before we head out?
No, I think that this I say no and then I start talking. So yes, I do. Um, I think that this highlights, being vigilant to a lot of the changes that we're going to see with these power plants, and when I say power plant, I'm talking about the actual facility devices, not talking about an actual like power station.
Right.
Um, but these are all little power plants just moving around everywhere,
Yeah.
and being familiar with that, we're really adding more to the world of hazmat, and that's energy. Energy is a big factor for us. We think about the chemical, the biological, and that, but really, energy systems are going to become a significant discipline added into hazmat because we're going to the calls with these new energy systems, whether it be electrical energy, combustive energy, um, ionic like all these different things. We have to stay on top of it, which also means that we have to reevaluate what is in our cache of equipment.
Right.
Um, Technology that maybe we didn't see as being as useful to us, it might start to become useful to us again. Those FIDs that departments got at one point, and a lot of them kind of let go to the wayside. I'd say if you can support it in your budget, I would rather have an FID than not have one, because an FID, when used properly with good training, can tell you so much that really is missing with a lot of our other technology.
Right. Hey, it's another tool in the toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another great tool, and this is super expensive though. A bottle of soapy water. Just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
If you want to know more, send me an email. I'll explain that one to you. All right. Before we head out, please don't forget our Hazmat HQ digital magazine, absolutely free to you and yours. You can get the latest edition at hazmathq.com. And make sure you check us out on social media. We have our HazChat series on our YouTube channel as well as Spotlight and our Facebook page. And I almost forgot to do this several times. There it is. Subscribe and like, folks, to the channel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Make
And
sure.
leave us a comment. Let us know if we're doing a
Yeah.
good job.
Or if my hair's out of place and which hair that is that might be out of place. Uh, at any rate, we look forward to seeing some of you, all of you, a few of you at some of the upcoming conferences. I know we have, as Derek mentioned, we just wrapped up Virginia. Next on the stop for us will be our conference. I say our, I mean the state of Florida, Hazmat Symposium, the third week of January. And you can find the list of all these conferences in the back of the HQ digital magazine. And we are going to start posting them on our Facebook pages, Instagram, and so forth. Also, if you have a call, something that you don't have to get, we won't have to tell people your names, departments, or whatever, but you think, hey, this is kind of crazy or something. I want to spread it out. Shoot me an email, bob at hazmat101consultants.com. Derek and I will read it over. We'll figure it out. We'll check it out. Send us some pictures. We'll throw it up as an episode because, as our company's motto is, when you're through learning, you're through. How was that? That was pretty good, right? Tied it right in.
That was, it's almost like you planned that. I don't know.
Stop
It
it.
feels forced. It feels forced now.
It almost does feel forced. Yeah, it's life. All right, gang. Take care, and we will see you next month.